You know, I still see his face sometimes, even now, the face of Victor Vance right before it all collapsed. It wasn't a mask of pure evil, just a perfect, expensive, slightly sweating mask of confidence. And then, bam, it cracked. That day, in court, felt like an earthquake, but the whole story, the real story, it started years before that, right in the heart of our little town, Willow Creek. My name is Luna Hayes. I was 11 when my dad, Ethan Hayes, was accused of ruining everything. He was just the best to quiet guy, always wearing these slightly faded button-down shirts. The kind of man who'd stop the car to move a turtle off the road, who knew the names of all the stray cats. He was an accountant, and he saw it as a calling, not just a job, which is probably why he got pulled into the mess with Victor. Victor Vance wasn't just wealthy. He was the face of wealth in Willow Creek. The guy who funded the new library wing and ran the Willow Creek Heritage Fund, a big pot of money meant for community projects, little things like restoring the old gazebo or giving scholarships. Dad was the chief financial officer. Victor was the charismatic head, the money man. They were supposed to be partners, building something great. Dad would come home late, tired but glowing, saying, "Luna, we're making a real difference. We're going to put that college money aside sooner than you think, kiddo." I loved hearing that. It felt safe, like we finally belonged after my mom. His beloved Sarah passed away when I was 6. We only had each other, and that was everything. We didn't have much hand-me-down furniture. Pizza only on budget movie night, but we had trust. Then came the morning they took him. It wasn't some dramatic TV arrest. It was quiet, cold, and utterly humiliating to men in crisp blue uniforms. Walked into the firm, straight past the mahogany desks, and slapped cuffs on my father's wrists. The charge? Embezzling $150,000 from the Heritage Fund. That night, DCF moved me to my Aunt Clara's house, and the whispers started immediately. Ethan Hayes, the thief, they'd say, stole from the town's children. The betrayal felt physical. The people Dad had been trying to help. Our neighbors now looked at me with pity mixed with disgust. I felt like I was wearing a scarlet. I finally saw Dad through the thick plexiglass at the county jail. He was wearing that awful orange jumpsuit, looking like a ghost of himself. He didn't even pretend to be strong. His eyes were red, tired, and full of fear. "Luna, baby, I didn't do it," he choked out, his hand pressed against the glass. Said the funds were gone, and then suddenly there were 3 signed checks I never wrote. They framed me. Framed me. I knew he was telling the truth. My father, who had once walked 2 miles back to a grocery store because the cashier gave him back $5 too much, was not a thief. But knowing wasn't enough, was it? The trial was set for 3 months out, and Dad's public defender, Mr. Dale, was the definition of burned out. Aunt Clara kept calling him, practically begging, and all she ever got was, "The evidence is overwhelming, Clara. Bank records don't lie. He needs to plead guilty, hope for a lighter sentence." This isn't one of those movie trials. Hearing that was like a punch to the stomach. Plead guilty? Let the world believe he was a snake who stole from orphans and grandmas? I couldn't breathe. That's when the rage settled in, a cold, quiet fire in my gut. If the grown-ups were going to give up, then I had to fight. I remembered what Dad always told me when my math homework seemed impossible. "Stop staring, Luna. Start searching. The solution is always hidden in plain sight." So I did. I told Aunt Clara I needed to go back to our old apartment to get my books. But really, I went straight to Dad's small, messy home office. The police had taken the big ledgers, the signed contracts, all the obvious stuff. But they missed the chaos. They missed the small box tucked under his old tax records. Inside, I found the copies of the 3 checks Victor used to accuse Dad. My heart hammered. I had seen my father's signature thousands of times, on school slips, on birthday cards, even on the stupid "I love you" notes he left in my lunchbox. And those 3 signatures? They were close, so close. It was spooky, but they weren't. Right? Dad's E in Ethan always had this little swoop, almost a dramatic flourish, like he was signing a treaty. The forged E was flat, lazy. The handwriting was too cramped, too nervous. It was a perfect fake, but an impersonal one. I took photos of them with my cheap phone camera. Then came the real gold mine. I found the final bank statement covering the withdrawal dates. It showed the $150,000 was pulled out in 3 separate checks, all processed on April 4th at 10:15 a.m. I ripped open my old pink backpack and pulled out my volunteer logbook. Dad didn't just work for the fund. He volunteered at the Willow Creek Community Food Bank. I flipped to April 4th. There it was, my dad's familiar, slightly loopy handwriting, food bank shift, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. He couldn't have been at the downtown bank signing off on $150,000 at 10:15 a.m. if he was filling boxes with canned goods across town. But Victor wasn't stupid. This needed a solid time stamp, not just a volunteer log. I closed my eyes and remembered. That day, April 4th, was running late. I muttered to myself, he needed coffee. I grabbed his old credit card statement from the file cabinet, and there it was, a charge at Penny's Perks, the little coffee drive-thru right next to the food bank. Timestamp 10:04 a.m., he bought a black coffee and a donut. Checkmate. The final piece, the one that made me gasp, was in an old email printout. It was from Victor to my dad, dated 2 weeks before the alleged embezzlement. The subject line was chilling, urgent, regarding the fund. The body was short and sharp. Ethan, this partnership isn't sustainable.
Oh.
My personal investments have cratered. I need the principal of my contribution back immediately. Let's discuss dissolving the fund quietly. Victor was in trouble. He needed the money. He must have taken his own money, and then, to cover his tracks and avoid any personal liability, he pinned it on the quiet accountant, who wouldn't fight back. I rushed to Mr. Dale's office, a cramped, dusty cave above a laundromat. He didn't even look up from his desk, which was basically a leaning tower of paperwork. "Look, kid," he sighed, pushing his glasses up. "I appreciate the enthusiasm, but fantasy won't beat forensic accounting." I slammed my folder down. "These are not fantasies, Mr. Dale. These are facts." I showed him the flat E in the signature. The food bank log. The 10:04 a.m. coffee receipt that placed Dad 3 miles from the bank. Then I slid the Victor Vance email across his desk. He stopped breathing. I watched his tired face morph from weary resignation to pure focused shock. The motive, ... the alibi. "This actually changes everything," he whispered, running a hand through his perpetually messy hair. Started making calls, finally acting like a real lawyer. Hope surged through me, a dizzying, powerful feeling. But that hope lasted exactly 6 days. Mr. Dale called Aunt Clara. The food bank's CCTV footage is overwritten monthly. Penny's Perks deletes their digital records after 60 days. Judge Thompson ruled that Victor's email, while suspicious, is inadmissible as it doesn't directly prove guilt. The system had swallowed my evidence whole. Mr. Dale was done. "Luna, I'm sorry. We have to go back to the guilty plea." I didn't argue. I just folded my evidence, put it in a worn manila folder, and ironed the simple red dress my Aunt Clara had hemmed for me. If the adults couldn't open their eyes, I'd force them open. I practiced my speech in the mirror, looking at the determined 11-year-old girl staring back. I researched court procedure, Your Honor. Objection, testimony. I wasn't just a kid anymore. I was a daughter, fighting for her hero. The courtroom was a vast, echoing space of dark wood and whispering people. Judge Thompson, a man with steel-gray eyes and a surprisingly gentle mouth, entered. When they brought Dad in, his shoulders were slumped, defeated. My heart broke, but my resolve hardened. As Mr. Dale nervously began to address the court, I stood up. I didn't whisper, I projected. "Your Honor, with all due respect, I must speak." The noise was instantaneous. Gasps, whispers. The sharp, angry voice of the prosecutor, Mr. Finch. "Your Honor, this is preposterous. The child must be removed." I kept walking, my shoes clicking on the polished floor, the folder clutched too. My chest? I stopped right in front of the bench. "My name is Luna Hayes. That man is my father, and I will defend him because no one else is telling the truth." Judge Thompson hit the gavel once, hard. The silence was deafening. He stared at me for what felt like an eternity, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, surprisingly, he nodded. "The court will hear the witness. Swear her in." I sat in the witness stand, a chair so high my feet didn't touch the ground. My hands were shaking, but my voice, amplified by the microphone, was steady. I went through the evidence like I was presenting a book report. "The signature is wrong, Your Honor. The E is flat, and my father's E is a flourish. A real father would know that?" Mr. Finch objected. "Irrelevant, Your Honor." But the judge let me continue. "The $150,000 was taken at 10:15 a.m. on April 4th. This credit card receipt," I held it up, "shows my father was buying coffee at Penny's Perks at 10:04 a.m. That's a 3-mile drive from the bank. Your Honor, he was helping the people Victor Vance was stealing from." In this email, I almost snarled, my voice losing its composure for the first time. "Shows Victor Vance was broke and desperate 2 weeks before he tried to ruin my father. He took his own money, and then he made Dad take the fall. Not theft, that's calculated. Cynical betrayal." The room was buzzing, frantic. Judge Thompson fixed his gaze on Mr. Dale. "Mr. Dale, is this true? Is there an established alibi that has been overlooked?" Mr. Dale, suddenly invigorated, stood tall. "Yes, Your Honor. The defense formally submits the credit card statement and the volunteer logs as irrefutable evidence of a valid alibi." After a short recess, Victor Vance took the stand. He was the picture of respectable grief, smoothly telling the court how my father had betrayed his trust. I watched him, clenching my fists. Then Mr. Dale stood, and it was glorious. He didn't yell, he was ice cold. He used my evidence like a scalpel. He cornered Victor with the alibi, making him admit he couldn't remember where he was at 10:15 a.m. on April 4th, and then he dropped the email. "Mr. Vance, this email sent by you states your financial investments have cratered and you need the principal of your contribution back immediately. Isn't it true you withdrew the money yourself, and realizing the legal trouble, you simply pointed the finger at the man who would never fight back?" Victor's face went pale, his composure melting in real time. He looked at me, just a kid, sitting next to my relieved father, and he knew it was over. Judge Thompson leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "Mr. Vance, you were under oath. Did you forge Ethan Hayes' signature on those checks?" The silence was the longest, heaviest moment of my life. 10 seconds. 15. Then Victor collapsed, burying his face in his hands, his whole body shaking, not with remorse but with shame and defeat. "Yes," he whispered, a sound barely heard over the mic. "Yes, I took the money. I had debts. I needed him to take the fall." The explosion in the courtroom was instant applause, reporters shouting, the gavel pounding. Judge Thompson, stern and unwavering, ordered Victor Vance into custody for perjury, fraud, and theft. He looked straight at my father. "Mr. Hayes, all charges are hereby dismissed. You are free." Dad ran to me, not Aunt Clara, not Mr. Dale, but me. He fell to his knees and wrapped me in a hug so tight I couldn't breathe, sobbing into my hair. "You did it, Luna. You saved me. You saved us." Judge Thompson called me to the bench one last time. He didn't scold me for breaking procedure. He looked down, his eyes unexpectedly soft. "Miss Hayes," he said, "in 30 years on this bench, I have never seen a lawyer fight with such clarity and heart. You found the truth when the system was ready to bury it. You need to keep that fire. The world needs people like you." Victor Vance went to prison 8 years plus full restitution. Dad got his job back, and the community, the same one that judged us, now called me the little lawyer. But the most important thing wasn't the job or the fame. It was that night back in our little apartment, Dad tucked me in and said, "We saved each other, kiddo. That's what family does. But here's the thing, and I want to hear what you think. Victor Vance stole $150,000 from a community fund. He hurt hundreds of people in Willow Creek, not just us. So my question to you is, when someone commits a crime like that breaks the trust of an entire town, is 8 years enough? And when the justice system is so quick to side with the wealthy and powerful, relying on an 11-year-old girl to do the detective work, what does that really say about justice in America?" Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Was Luna right to interrupt the court? And how do we fix a system that lets a man like Victor Vance get so close to destroying an innocent family and a whole community? Don't forget to like and subscribe. For more stories where the smallest voice makes the biggest difference, see you next time.